You are listening to Offensive Lines with Marlon and Boyd. Small stakes NFL gambling for the average fan.
Welcome to Offensive Lines. I'm Marlon.
I'm Boyd.
And the championship games left with a whimper.
Oh, they were horrible.
But we left with a profit.
Yes. Small on the playoff games themselves. Good on the futures bets. Kind of like the season.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just bet futures next year.
Yeah. There'll be a lot of dead air between September and late December.
Yeah.
But to sort of summarize, we had 2 losing weeks just betting the games. The first one, we had a bunch of teasers. I'm not going to go through them, but we won one of the teasers. Week 2, we cashed everything. And week 3, we went 1 of 3 bets. But way back in week 1 of the playoffs, we decided that we thought Atlanta and New England were going to meet in the Super Bowl. That was pretty smart.
Yeah, and that we agreed on Atlanta was the shocking part. Like, I knew we'd agree on New England, but on Atlanta was, I think, a surprise to both of us, if I remember back to it. Because when I said Atlanta, you went, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
There was no real argument or discussions or...
And I'd prepared an argument. You probably had as well. You know,
well, mine was based on value, and mine was based on value and Dallas. That no rookie quarterback had ever gone to a Super Bowl or anything like that. It was kind of based on that. But anyway.
My biggest basis was probably that I did not believe in Dallas's defense at all. Their defense is named Ezekiel Elliott.
Yes, and they didn't use it properly.
No. So, to summarize, I guess, we won on $110 wagered over the playoffs. We won just under 32. So, a positive return of about 29%.
That's pretty good.
No, not
I'd
bad
take
at
that
all.
for the regular season.
I'd take that for any investment in the world.
Yeah.
I would take that on an annual basis for any investment I was putting money into.
So, yeah, it was good. We should, for the sake of honesty, we did cash out a couple of our future bets early before we cashed out the Atlanta to win the NFC at $13.50.
Yes.
And what was that going to pay?
$22.50.
$22.50.
But when we had that text conversation,
yeah,
we both agreed we would be risking $13.50 to win an additional $9. I think we brought this up on the podcast last week.
Yeah, so we cashed that one out early. And we also cashed out after Atlanta won, game 1. We cashed out at $24.96 before the New England game because they were off. So it was like, okay, we're getting 5 times return on our money to risk for another 12. And if New England somehow happened to lose that game, we'd get nothing. So I have no problem with what we did there.
No, it's easy to cry about it, but
when you bet 5 and you cash out at 25, essentially, so to risk 20 to gain an extra 12, ask those guys in Philly how they're feeling about rolling over that Green Bay bet at 28,000.
I don't believe them, but
I do. Because you know what it's like when you're sitting at a blackjack table and you're hitting. It's hard to walk away, even when it starts to turn.
Well,
That's
maybe
why
it's
Vegas
because I'm
doesn't go
old as
broke.
fuck. But walking away with a profit is something I've learned to do. And I guess you're right. It's probably only in about 10 years, the last 10 years, that I'll have a decent shooter at a craps table, make some money, and then just say to Shelley, no, this guy's going to be a tough act to follow. You know how quick it can turn. We're up, close to $300 between us. Let's just walk away.
Yeah. Where Vegas doesn't make their money off guys like that. Or England, which is where we bet. So hopefully some of you followed our future bets. They were the ones that paid. So we did pretty good. We had New England to win the AFC. That cashed for $833, I think, on $5. And Atlanta to win, we cashed at $13.50, and then the parlay of the two to meet in the Super Bowl paid us $25. That was good.
No,
I'll
one of my
take it
better
every day of the
ideas
week.
of the year was to throw in some futures. It's mainly because I hated the games in week one so much.
Yeah, it
I
gave
like
us a
the
little
futures
more
better,
Yeah.
So on to the games themselves. Such as they were. I mean, Atlanta just crushed Green Bay.
See, but there was the two plays, though, make it a very different game, and we probably hit our parlay if they turn out different. The missed field goal on Green Bay's first drive and the fumble inside the 10 on the second. That's 10 points off the board. 6 at the minimum. It may have got us closer to the Green Bay in that game longer.
Yeah.
Because they were a drive. There was several times in that game where they were a drive away from getting back into it.
Yeah, so you're
And they just
talking
could-
the Mason Crosby missed field goal from, 41 or whatever. And then the Ripkowski fumble, which we both thought that's a terrible place to try to stay on your feet for an extra yard.
With 3 guys dragging on you and one guy ripping at the ball. And he ripped at the ball for a yard before it came out. Just fall to the ground.
And they kept saying, oh, they're holding him up. And I couldn't see it. I saw 3 opportunities where all he had to do was drop that knee.
Yeah.
And I brought up that LaDainian Tomlinson, who once went virtually 2 years without fumbling, said that was something he learned after about year 2, was sometimes a yard matters. Most times it doesn't. Just go down.
Yeah. It was...
I think another play that really hurt us there was Green Bay should have had a pick on about the 5 just before that they half.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a punt thrown up there. And he couldn't even run under it. Like, he misjudged where the ball was coming down. And then the Atlanta receiver, I think it was Sanu, came back and at least made it challenging. But they could have had the ball back there, could have gotten out of the half. I doubt they would have scored. They would have had the ball in their own 5. But they gave up 7 on that drive.
Yeah. And the fumble they didn't recover that was in the guy's hands. Like, everything that could go wrong for Green Bay in that game, it reminded me of the Super Bowl with Denver. And once he missed that field goal, it was almost like, it's going to be one of those days. And then the fumble happened right after it, and it was done.
But let's also point out that Green Bay had been getting every bounce for the last 2 months. It turns around. Sometimes it's how the ball bounces. I think Atlanta was too much for them, period.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I find it hard to envision a situation where Atlanta loses that game. That defense, I know they're injured, but
if you got but I'm just saying it would have been a game. I don't know if Green Bay would have won, but it would have been entertaining in the second half.
yes,
If they get the touchdown and they recover the fumble at the Atlanta's 45 on that bad snap
yeah,
when it hits Sanu, like if they score there, even if field, like if it's 24-10 or 24-13 at the half or 17-13 at the half, it's totally different game in the second half.
maybe. But Atlanta started resting their starters and if the game had been within 2 scores with Aaron Rodgers on the field, and Green Bay's defense was completely unable to stop Atlanta.
Yeah.
They predicting what would have happened on a couple of plays
Oh, no,
is
I know,
tricky
but
for that reason, because Atlanta probably just sort of said, all right, well, we'll put up 60 on these fuckers, because they probably could have.
The Green Bay offense never had any rhythm after that fumble. They had 2 really good drives, first 2 drives of the first quarter, and then nothing for the rest of the half. That took them out of sync totally. Because they abandoned the running game after the fumble in the first half. I think they had 3 or 4 carries in the first half.
What was 31-0 at one point? I mean,
Well, I was it was 24 at the end of the half.
yeah.
But if it's 17-10 with 3 minutes left, is he throwing that ball up that he missed the pick on? They're a little more. Atlanta may have been a little more conservative. They had nothing to lose at the end of the first half, up 17-0. Things change their play calling too.
That's true.
If the game's closer, so and Green Bay's offense just never got back in sync.
And then they started to lose O-linemen.
Yeah, but the second play of the second half was a touchdown to Julio. And then it was like, okay, we're not covering this. Even in our parlay where we teased it to plus 11. So, and it looked like Green Bay's defense on Coleman's touchdown to the corner, it looked like they'd given up. To me.
Yeah, on that one. I mean, was it Gunter that Julio threw around on that 73-yarder?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. That guy's probably waking up right now in a cold sweat.
Well, yeah, you got your third-string cornerback covering the best receiver in football, or top 2 anyway.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that guy has a role, but he's young and he was put in way over his head.
Yeah, well, you can't cover man-to-man. Because Dallas did the same thing. When Dez was lined up man-to-man, they just threw it up for him.
Yep. The guy's small.
So,
he doesn't have the weight, he doesn't have the size, and he doesn't have the talent to cover Dez or Julio. And you're right. I mean, he just got torched by Dez when the Cowboys were making their comeback. They just started doing it. And that's really what you should do with Dez. I mean, Julio seems to get more separation somehow than Dez, but physically they're the same guy.
Yeah.
They're 220. They're 6'2", 6'3". Strong as fuck. But the thing that surprised me the most was even before Green Bay lost all those offensive linemen, that is a good pass blocking line. That Atlanta defense just tore it up. They were offering no resistance.
See, and that's... I know we're not making our picks or anything, but I'm just going to point it. That's what's floating in my head right now as I'm deciding on who I want to pick in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Is that they were able to hold Green Bay to only 21 points.
They blitzed more than they usually do, but they still didn't blitz a lot to my eye. Mostly it was 4 guys. And they got in so fast that when we were talking about it last week on the podcast, I said you have to put a cage around Rodgers. Well, they did. There were guys on both sides who didn't over-rush and get behind him. Like, he'd look around and there was nowhere to go, and there were guys a foot and a half away and closing.
Well, and that's the thing. What's floating in my head is Brady doesn't move. Like, they could have had 6-8 sacks if Rodgers doesn't roll out of the pocket.
And they're not afraid of him rolling out.
No.
You know? Like, they were very disciplined with their rush as well.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have you seen teams, they think they've got the edge, they come around, and that line would just block you behind Rodgers. He takes 2 steps up and then goes left or right, starts dancing around.
Yeah.
He never even had that opportunity.
No, and when he did get outside the pocket, he got rocked on that one.
Oh, yeah. But at that point, that was when their line
that was in the first half.
Oh, was it?
That was in the first half,
okay.
The first one, where the corner, they blitzed the corner safety, and Rodgers rolled out. He completed the pass, but he got fucking just rocked. So, it's something to think about. They're talking about, and just to put this in your head, if anybody else is thinking about betting the Super Bowl, they're not talking about New England's defense as a top 10 defense. It's the top scoring defense.
Yeah, it's 16 by DVOA, weighted DVOA.
And just put this in the back of your head as well. The division they play in and the competition they played this year. I don't know how they get a schedule like that, being the number 1 team in the AFC every fucking year for 15 years. And they seem to have 2 games during the course of the year that are remotely tough.
Well, are you familiar with the YouTube things where they take that sequence out of, I believe it's The Bunker, a German thing about Hitler? And then it's in German, so they just do subtitles. And there's probably 100 of these out there. It's like Hitler reacts to the new Star Wars trailer.
Okay.
But they did one, and Hitler was essentially Goodell after New England beat Arizona, lamenting it. It's brilliant. I'll send you a link to it. I watched it at work today.
Okay.
And it just ends with, can the fucking AFC East not ever get their shit together? And the final line is, oh, and fuck the Jets. But that's really kind of true.
Yeah. But, we might as well talk about that game now. There's not much else to say about Atlanta and Green Bay. It was a shit stomping. Yes, Green Bay was injured. Does it show the lack of strength of the NFC, or is it just both conferences are shit, and you got one good team and a couple of teams just below it?
I've got a couple of things to say. One, the Atlanta is the 8th best offensive team of all time by DVOA stats. Barnwell showed a piece that over the last 6 games, Matt Ryan was almost identical, with the exception of touchdown passes thrown, to the best 6-game stretch of Brady's career. When he was throwing to Moss in the fuck you
year. He's been
year.
Crazy. He's been crazy.
So their offense is legitimately good. The other thing, which I think is interesting, is all the good defenses got taken out this year.
But who had a good defense?
Denver still did.
Pass defense. They had a good pass defense.
Baltimore had a good defense. The Giants had a good defense.
Yeah, but they got torched.
Yeah, Philly had the... But again, like, this puts us in a tricky situation because we've done very well in the last 3 Super Bowls by betting defense.
Yes, but there wasn't an elite defense that couldn't be had this year. Not one. There was nobody that put it all together for a good stretch. Because everybody knew you could beat Denver running the ball. Atlanta did it. In Denver.
Yeah.
Like, there was not one defense you could hang your hat on. Like, we bet the Giants over the Packers based on the Giants' defense. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there like wasn't fucking one. Geniuses for about a half.
But there wasn't one that you could go, okay, yeah, that's clearly the best defense in football.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't one this year. That's what made it a weird year to bet, and it's going to make it even more weird to bet on the Super Bowl. Like you were saying, we hang our hat on defense in the Super Bowl. And the Patriots having the best scoring defense isn't really swaying me in their favor.
No, that's not a factor. We're not making our picks yet because we always...
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just throwing out facts for people
around,
that I've heard.
But yeah, I'm going back and forth.
I'm throwing 4 out of the last 5 Super Bowls where the number 1 scoring offense played the number 1 scoring defense. The defensive team won. Now, you'd have to look closer into that stat to see what kind of offense the scoring defense did.
Yeah, exactly.
That I don't know. That doesn't mean shit.
No, it doesn't.
It's a good number it's a good number to put out there for people, for the Joe Blows that won't think past that stat. But
I mean, what Atlanta has done this year, I think my point there was I was just trying to say this offense is better than people realize.
Yes.
And they played the best defenses available. And no one stopped them.
I'm not criticizing Atlanta at all. I'm just saying there was...
Oh, no. I didn't think you were. I was trying to put a sharp end on my point there.
Okay.
Which was this Atlanta offense is historically good. And in that sequence, Barnwell cites, Julio Jones didn't play in 2 of those games.
The one thing I wish I could have seen was Le'Veon Bell fucking playing the whole game. Because I still think he can run on the Patriots. Williams had a decent game. Until they got too far behind to use him.
Like, this is part of the reason I agreed to cash out. Or not agreed. I believe I may have stressed that we should cash out.
Yeah.
I still think this New England team is untested. The list of quarterbacks they've played is atrocious.
And all this shit is swirling in my head. And one day I'm I'm over here. And then the next day it's like, oh no, then I think of this, and oh no, I'm back over to the other side. And it's like, I'm glad we don't have to pick this week. I'm glad there's 2 weeks.
No, I'm not. I don't know it's going to help me because I'm almost hour to hour.
Well, yeah, I read something. I'll read something on Twitter and that's a good point in their favor. Yeah. And then an hour later, it'll be a point in the other team's favor. It's like, that's a really good point too. And then you do the eye test on both teams, and Atlanta plays in a shitty division as fucking New England.
And they lost to some bad teams.
Yeah. So I'm just throwing this all out there for people to think about because we're not making our pick.
Yeah.
So just stuff I've seen comparing and contrasting the teams. And those historical stats mean shit. The 4 out of 5 top scoring defense is 1.
Okay.
I'm going to say one of those teams was probably fucking, I don't know, but it wouldn't have been Baltimore. Might have been Baltimore one of the years they won, but the Bears, I'm sure, was one. Oh, no, Patriots wouldn't have been the top scoring team that year. Fuck, that's a hard one.
I do recommend that people check out that Barnwell, because it's not just dumb stats. He breaks it down as to how good offenses were relative to what the league scored that year. So it's not a perfect level, but he attempts to try to do it that adjusts to rule changes for points, right?
Well, no, but when you compare era to era, that's the easiest way to do it. So if the top offense was outscoring everybody by 10 points back when you could mug a receiver, that's better than the Falcons outscoring teams by 3.
Oh, exactly. And he tries to bring that in, and he explains his methodology, because Barnwell is still fucking great. Still think he's the best football.
How many points? How many points would the 80s and 90s Niners score in this fucking era when you can't fucking jam or hold or fuck?
Like, who knows? Because teams adjust. Like, you see it all the time.
They don't adjust that much. When you look at what they had, Taylor Rice, Roger Craig, and they had Dwight Clark or somebody else at tight end, and they had one of the best offensive lines.
Well, I think
they score. It would be ridiculous. They put up 50 in the Super Bowl with Steve Young.
Yeah, sort of Washington with Mark Rippon.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. How many points would they score? Green Bay and Dallas put up 34 and 31 against each other. That Niners team would have put a 50 on them.
But again, you do what you have to. It's about the W, right? It's interesting. I believe, and I'm speaking from memory here, I think Barnwell comes up with the two most efficient offenses were the 99 and 2001 Rams. Because they were putting up over 500 points in an era where teams, the rest of the field wasn't even getting to 400.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting article.
Now I'm going to take a look at that one tomorrow.
Yeah, and hey, I've raved about Barnwell for years.
You got to start sending me links to these things when you see them, because I don't go hunting that much on the internet anymore. It doesn't flow through my Twitter feed. I do the post for the website, the aggregator thing, and I'm looking for funny shit. I don't look at
when I find something that I think is thought-provoking, I'll send it to you. I won't bother with the funny shit because you're so far ahead of me on that. But
well, yeah, but that's where I hunt. I don't go to ESPN or anything anymore, and I'm hardly on the internet outside of Twitter and what I do. Site. That's it. I just got sick of it, and it was wasting about 4 hours a day out of my life.
Yeah.
Just scrolling through useless shit, looking for something that might be interesting. There's so much content, you can't sift through the shit to get to the good stuff. So if you find something good.
I don't even go to ESPN, well, except for fantasy when we're playing it, but I'll search Barnwell, ESPN. And I'll read whatever he's written. Some of it, I think, gets a little wonky. In the true sense of just numbers wonky. Yeah. But man, sometimes he can put together a masterpiece. So what else did you see in this Pittsburgh-New England game?
Well, Bell going down, they never seemed to recover from. That was kind of
which made me think, how many times does New England get to play a team in the championship game where the star running back goes down in the first quarter?
Well, and here's going to be the controversy around that. They're saying that Tomlin knew about it, and Bell wasn't on the injury report at all. So
same thing with Sherman.
Yeah, so if they're talking Seattle's going to lose draft picks, let's hit up the Steelers with the same thing.
Yeah,
because that's huge and it's only huge in betting. Let's be real here. Hiding an injury from the Steelers or from the Patriots doesn't really affect the game. of what the Patriots planned on doing. So if he would have been as questionable, would Pittsburgh or would New England have changed their game plan on defense? No.
No, because they were bracketing Brown anyway.
Yeah, but to stop Bell. Like their game plan would have been the same. You just treat everybody like they're healthy because everybody's banged up, and you go play the game and defend it depending on who's on the field.
Yeah.
So, to me, it doesn't matter if they disclose these injuries or not. It's only for gambling purposes, and I was going to take New England Bell or not. We took it with Bell in.
Yeah.
The line might have moved a little. It's just to save Vegas some money, I think. Is where it comes down to.
Yeah.
Because if Bell's out or listed, the line may have moved even more. It wouldn't have saved them this time, but I'm sure it would have in the past in games. So it's all about gambling and money. That's it.
It's interesting, too, though, that we talked that maybe KC had figured out something in the second half against Bell in the previous, because he was getting 6 or 7. If that's where he got hurt, that explains a lot.
Yeah. And we don't know if they figured anything out, or maybe he just got hurt. That's,
yeah.
You know, and
yeah,
maybe
and one is as likely as the other.
Yeah. I know a groin is different than a rib, but when you see Nelson get shot up, but I guess you could puncture a lung with broken ribs.
Groins are brutal, man. Groins are brutal. Feet are brutal. But Pittsburgh came out lifeless in that game, even before he was gone. I mean, everyone just says, "Oh, Tomlin's a coach I fear." I would really like to see why. I mean, if he's a coach in the Madden sense, that he's just sort of a team administrator, fine. He seems to do a good job of usually having Pittsburgh under control. Well, and that's fine, and maybe that is the role of most head coaches.
Well, it is, but I hate the Steelers more than anybody I know, and I'm not really defending Tomlin here. Well, I kind of am. His worst record are 8-8 in his 10 years. That's got to count for something. We can't just discount him as being. We can't discount all these coaches as being bumbleheads.
I'm not saying he's foolish, but his approach seems random. You know, sometimes he'll go for 2, sometimes he won't, and if he goes for 2, then he abandons it. Like,
no, they just got outplayed in this game. I don't think,
and they seemed listless.
You could have had Chuck Noll there.
Did you see now, like, the 2 other ridiculous things going on? They're floating bullshit trade rumors for Brown, and then Roethlisberger, because I guess he didn't get enough attention for his, quote, injuries, unquote. Now he's saying he might retire.
Well, my guess that's a negotiating ploy to get a rework of his deal. That's my take on it. So, but, well, when you hear that Antonio Brown Facebook Live that locker room thing because now he's got a 6-figure contract with Facebook, makes sense. That'll make a locker room more unhappy than a whiny, bitchy receiver.
Oh, yeah.
When you're putting yourself above the team, they don't care if you're being competitive and bitch that you're not getting the ball. They'll put up with that. But when you're putting your own, that doesn't look like you're in it to win it for the team. That'll fucking tear a team apart faster than anything.
Yep.
If he was just doing it because he was an idiot, they would forget about it. But that shit can fracture a team. When you think you have a guy on your team that's all in, but he's more concerned about number one, it could be tough. So I wouldn't. And if that's a real rumor, I wouldn't blame them. If they don't think he's buying in anymore, that he's putting himself above the team, then football's the one sport where they don't put up with it. Because there's too many other interchangeable parts that affect you winning. There's not one guy outside of a quarterback that can change a game. Not one that can't be replaced. I'm not saying they can replace Brown with somebody that's going to give them the same production, but Chris Hogan went for the same amount of yards and touchdowns as Julio Jones. I'm looking at skill position players almost as interchangeable if your quarterback's good.
And your coach,
like you said. No, but like you said, the Falcons, Ryan had a 6-game stretch as good as Brady, and 2 of those games were without Julio Jones.
Yeah, and we're talking Brady with Moss.
Right? I know.
Like, we're talking peak Brady, and I don't think there's any argument at this stage that he's the best quarterback in history. I don't think there has been for a long time.
Well, I'd put Montana and him as 1 and 1A for me. Because they look like the same guys to me.
Different rule system, yeah, sort of. But
Montana had better receivers over the course of his career than Brady's had the majority of his.
By far.
But Montana was playing the same kind of system. Short passes, slot guys, Rice in the slot, slants, that kind of thing.
And Montana got punished a lot more than Brady's ever had to put up with.
Yeah. But they invented the system Brady's running, or Belichick's using. Short passes to wide receivers and running backs. Remember when Roger Craig was the first running back with 1,000 receiving yards?
Yeah.
You see running backs with 75 catches now. That started with Montana and Walsh. So I think those two you can compare. Elway was really good, too.
He's my favorite of all of the rest. Like, I think he had the most talent, and he had no supporting cast for 90% of his career.
Yeah, you only got it when his career was on the downside.
Yeah.
So we never know what he could have done with talent.
He's Andrew Luck. He has no O-line, he has no receivers, and he has no running backs for the bulk of his career thus far.
Yeah.
Let's see if Luck turns out to be Elway.
I hope not.
But, like that's where the team matters. And Belichick, Walsh, even that comparison can be made to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Belichick's changed the way you look at the game just like Walsh did.
Yeah.
Like he takes guys like Woodhead and Hogan and these smaller guys, and he changes the way guys are used. Wes Welker. Like all these guys, these little guys that nobody else ever used are now getting a shot in the NFL because Belichick showed you could use them.
Yes.
And be successful.
To a certain point, though, those little guys would never have survived in the Montana era Niners.
No.
An equivalent of Ronnie Lott would have knocked them into 2008.
True. But Belichick
like you can do so much more over the middle than was ever available to the Niners.
Yes.
It used to be you try to catch that pass in the middle, someone will kill you.
Yeah. Walsh and Belichick are similar. Because Walsh used that rule and said, okay, my guys are getting killed over the middle. Well, let's make them 6-8 yard passes and run with it.
Yeah. And they were mostly on the outside. He didn't sacrifice his guys.
No, and Belichick is using the rules now. Okay, they can't hit me over the middle. I can send my little guys over the middle. And he's also somewhat revolutionized two athletic tight ends that aren't just blockers, which I'd never seen before. But he can never seem to get the two guys on the field at the same fucking time.
Yeah,
The year
but I mean,
Fernandez and
Belichick
Gronk were on
learns
the
too.
field
I mean,
together.
he saw Gonzalez and Gates, and you can send a big man over the middle now.
Yeah.
And these guys can do stuff after the catch, right? Like, I mean, I think Gonzalez, more than anything, revolutionized that position, and Belichick just went looking for a guy who
And
could do
Shannon
that.
Sharp. Shannon Sharp.
Oh,
gotta
Shannon
give him
Sharp.
some
Forgot
credit.
Shannon Sharp. Yeah.
Because he had the speed of a receiver and was a tight end.
Yeah.
But Belichick exploits it. He sees it before other coaches see it, and then he exploits it. When they're going, okay, we're going to go 5 DBs. Well, okay, I want a DB to cover my tight end, or one of your slow fucking safeties, or a linebacker. You can't do it. If Fernandez wasn't such a fuck up, that offense would be unbelievable.
Well,
Like-
they still don't suck.
No, but that year when him and Gronk both played, that was fucking insane. Never seen anything like it from two tight ends. And then you couldn't defend it because everybody was going to those spread 4 wides, and you were putting out your dime package on defense, and then he was running tight ends down the middle where you had nobody. It was like that's the kind of thing Walsh would do. And I don't know if you give credit to Numbnuts there, their offensive coordinator, McDaniel,
Yeah.
but he's got to have something to do with it.
Based on the overall success of coordinators who leave New England, I really kind of think it's the Belichick show. He's the last coach who's that involved in X's and O's at the head coach position.
Yeah, well, I got to give Dimitrioff a little credit. He built a pretty good fucking team in Atlanta.
Did you
Gotta
did you
do-
read that little tidbit?
No.
Dimitrioff, who obviously came out of the Belichick tree, called Belichick to ask his advice on trading off for Julio, and Belichick
And he
said,
told him
"No,
not
don't
to
do
do
it."
But he did it.
Yeah.
And the signings he made this offseason with Sanu and Gabriel,
We thought that spike-haired weirdo. You know, when we watched Hard Knocks, we
drafted
didn't
Freeman
think it was
Coleman?
going to happen.
well, no, with that coach. But then he brings in Dan Quinn from Seattle. And that defense hasn't been the same since he left there, and Atlanta's has risen. Go figure.
Well, and they're based on the same thing, speed.
Yeah, but go figure.
Speed.
Has Quinn got any credit for that defense? They just talk about the offense. I was watching that game thinking, fuck, he did a fuck of a job with that defense because they were garbage.
Yeah, and they were garbage for most of this year, too. And then, in like the last 8 games, they had what's probably an unsustainable turnover rate. Even
Yeah, we
little
said that
things
about
like
New
that
Orleans.
Ripkowski foul.
Yeah,
Or
but we say that
fumble.
about New Orleans.
Pardon?
That year New Orleans won.
Yeah.
It just kept happening.
Yeah. And it's
You get on that
unsustainable.
run.
It's not true. I mean, it
Well,
doesn't
not
come
for
over
year
next
over year.
No.
Not for year over year, but in a year, you can, for some reason, there's teams that do it.
Streaks exist. I mean, we gamble enough. I shoot dice, you know?
So,
I have to believe streaks exist, otherwise I know the math will kill me.
but the Dan Quinn, nobody's talking about their defense turnaround. And it's not just, they're stopping drives. They're not just getting turnovers every drive. They actually shut down the Packers for the half, which I didn't think was possible. And nobody did because the over-under was like 58.5. So I'll give them credit there. The offense is like Dallas. Keep their defense off the field and fresh. And speed kills on either side of the ball in the NFL. But they're not small speed. They're not like Indy tried to do when Peyton Manning was there.
They're pretty small.
But not up front.
On
not
the
like
lines, back to the linebackers, it's speed-based, but that's fine if you can tackle.
They got some big dudes in the middle of that defensive line.
It's a pretty small defense. Like check into that, which I'm not against. Small defenses with solid tackling can win. But then you watch, say, Pittsburgh last weekend. If you don't tackle, none of it matters.
Well, or cover. Like, on all those, Hogan caught all those passes. He never got touched on 3/4 of them.
Like in the old days, like when the Giants stomped the Broncos in the Super Bowl, they were just bigger and meaner, and they killed anyone who tried to come out there. Not available under the rules anymore.
Yeah.
But if you can properly tackle and properly choose your angles and then make the tackle, you can get away with being smaller in this world.
Yeah. Smart and fast, it will work. So, but one thing I want to bring up in the New England game, and it was a theme throughout the playoffs, which drives me fucking bananas. The amount of penalties we see called in the regular season to the playoffs, and then the New England-Pittsburgh game specifically, they were like 5 or 6 minutes into the third quarter, and a flag's thrown, and Nance like, oh, there's our first flag of the game. I'm like, what? Oh, that's why the games go by a little quicker in the playoffs. There's not a holding, defensive hold. They'd actually let them play a little bit.
It's more the defensive holding, by the way. I see your point. I would like to see more holding called on pass protection. But, yeah, the defensive holding and the defensive contact, come on.
They just put the flag away.
This isn't helping anyone on injuries. This isn't helping anybody enjoy the game more. I call those Peyton Manning rules. Where I sneezed on the guy going by me. Well, there's 5 yards of first down.
No, I know, but why do they change it in the playoffs? Like,
happens in every sport, though. Boy.
I know,
you've driven that home to me.
I know, but I'll take it periodically in the NFL. But this isn't like hockey where they call 7 penalties in a game and then the playoffs they call 3. There's 15 to 18, I would bet, accepted penalties per contest. And there's no flags in the playoffs. Like the first one, 5 minutes into the third quarter. It doesn't make any sense that there's no holding on the lines, offensive and defensive lines, or contact. Like they called the one in the Green Bay game while we were talking against Green Bay, and it was iffy. Where he turned his head, mistimed his jump.
Oh, yeah, okay.
His arms hit into the receiver. The receiver still got his hands on the ball. He still knocked it away. Pass interference in the end zone. And in the Pittsburgh game, there's no penalties. Like, just be consistent. If it's there in the regular season, call it in the fucking playoffs in the trenches. Like, I understand, thinking about it after with Kelsey and Reed being pissed off that they called that holding penalty when Harrison went around the edge. Well, if you've let 4 of them go in the game, or other instances of holding go in the game, and then you call that, I'm going to be pissed off. So, and you hear one of the Atlanta cornerbacks said, oh, Rodgers doesn't do very well when they call the game fair. What's he referring to? Defensive holdings, extending drives, all that shit. So why not?
I thought
just
it was
be
a lineman just
consistent?
talking about the offensive line holding.
Well, whoever it was, I thought it was a DB, but whoever it was, he's making the point that they're calling too much shit in favor of better quarterbacks, to get more offense in the game during the regular fucking season.
It's Cam Newton argument.
So it either is or it isn't. How these teams, I've watched these teams in the Final Four play this year. They didn't have penalty-free halves. But all of a sudden, in the biggest game of the year, they're immaculately skilled and don't do anything fucking wrong? Just have a little consistency between the playoffs and the regular season. The regular season games are sometimes unwatchable because of the amount of penalties. I'm not saying throw more flags, throw less in the regular season.
Yes.
Because it ruins the fucking games. Those games had flow. It wasn't like, oh, there's one play and 3 penalties, and now they're at the 30.
Well, we watched whole drives, and we'd talk about them on the phone, and I'm just going, this drive has moved from the 20 to the opposition 30 without a first down by execution. Every first down has been on a penalty.
Yeah, well, that Raider game had fucking, between Tampa and the Raiders, had like 35 or 36 accepted penalties between two teams. And you mean the Steelers and the Patriots are that good? There wasn't one infraction on that line, on either line. For
but I still want egregious. When I see a guy with a half Nelson ripping down a defensive lineman from behind.
Oh, Marlon, I'm not saying
I want that called. And that rarely seems to get called. Particularly on a good quarterback. You're correct.
But I'm just saying, if I'm on that team and you haven't called shit all game, and then you throw a flag, I'm pissed off too after the game. I'm going to be screaming, we got fucked. Even though when I watched the tape, in the regular season, that Harrison holding that was on him is called every time. But if there was instances in the game where there was egregious holding and they just put the flag in their pocket, and I honestly think Harrison was at too wide of an angle to get to Smith anyway.
And it's weird what Atlanta said about Green Bay too, by the way, because I watch it, and sometimes Rodgers is dancing around, and I'm seeing every lineman, and I'm just going, nope, no hold, no hold, no hold, and I'm in awe of that, frankly. That sometimes on his 7 and 9 second ones, I don't see a single fucking hold. That just blows my fucking mind.
No, I know, but it's frustrating to watch football how it should be, where there's nothing that affected the play. I don't want holding on the other side of the field when the ball's out in 2 seconds and the guy's 15 yards down the field and makes a cut.
I don't want defensive holding, defensive cut for arm fighting. You know, I don't want that contact rule. I don't want that 5-yard first down Peyton Manning bullshit. Get that out of the game, and you've cleared up 90% of your problems.
But that Julio Jones touchdown, the first one in the Atlanta game, he pushed off. There's no call.
Yeah, I mean, that's a different argument. I
know, but they call that
season to whatever.
They call that the regular season.
Yeah, but how many touchdowns does Michael Irvin have if you call offensive PI?
Playing the Raiders? Was it the Raiders?
No. I'm talking Michael Irvin back in.
No, I know.
Heyday.
But
the dude just came up and head slapped, and I would be. This was when you had to go to a bar to watch out of market games. And I'd just be going, Jesus Christ, he's head slapping the man.
Right. But I'm talking about the consistency. Either it is or it isn't. Tennessee potentially missed the playoffs because of that fucking Oakland game. We scored a touchdown and got called for pushing off or a pick. There was picks all fucking weekend. They don't call them in the playoffs.
Oh, well, now they've tried to basically say there's a difference between a pick and a rub.
Well, no,
but the first time I ever saw that was when Peyton was playing the Chargers one time. And I'm going, it's a pick. And they went to the announcer, and they'd obviously been coached, right?
Yeah.
Well, you see, that wasn't a pick play. That was a rub play. That was the first time I heard it, and I almost punched a fucking wall because it was a pick play.
Well, and
now, admittedly, the Chargers, I guess, learned from that briefly because, we run more pick plays than probably any offense in football.
And I think it was in the Patriots game. Brown was running across the middle about 3 yards from the line of scrimmage or 4, and he just got fucking steamrolled, and there was no penalty. Like steamrolled. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to chuck you off the line. He got fucking steamrolled.
Well, how deep was he?
I still 4 yards
think...
past the line. Like it.
No, you've got 5 yards to hit him, as long as your initial contact goes.
No, it was like a fucking shoulder to shoulder, knock him on his ass.
That's fine.
Within 5 yards,
where do you as long as it's your initial contact, you can hit him.
And knock him off his feet.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
They never let that go. Fuck.
Yeah, no, within 5 yards, your initial contact.
That's false. Because how can they call a pick play then? That's false. Because the offense would be able to do it too.
The pick play absorbs the defender, dude.
So he absorbed fucking Antonio Brown out of his route. It's no different. If I'm a defensive
check the interception
back,
in the New England Super Bowl. It's contact within 5 yards. He's allowed to
for
do
the
it.
Ball.
It was initial contact.
He was playing the ball.
No,
he couldn't just run up.
You can hit a guy within 5 yards the first time.
Dude, then everybody just tackle him at the line.
Can't wrap him up. That's holding.
Well, it's the same. Okay, so I don't wrap him up. I just trip him.
Well, tripping is also a foul.
No. He runs by me. He gives me a juke at the line. And he's by me. Why don't I just knock his feet out? What's the difference?
Because that's tripping.
No, if I'm do they trip with my hand?
You can't wrap him up. If you just push him over, if it's your initial contact and you make initial contact with a receiver and you knock him on his ass, that's fine.
No. You can't run up and just plow a guy like you're tackling him when he's crossing the middle. Like he did a quick slant. You know those quick slants where they run just from their position?
Depends where it is in the field. But supposedly you got 5 yards for your initial contact. You can't maintain the contact, and you can't tackle, hold, or trip.
That's my point. Well, this was basically a tackle. He just ran into him with his shoulder and blew him up. It wasn't a little, I'm going to give him a push. This was like shoulder to shoulder, knocked him on his ass.
Have you watched Seattle play? Over the last 5 years, they made a living off that.
So why can't I just fucking trip the guy, like tackle him?
Because that's
the
holding.
Difference?
Wrapping the guy up, getting a hand on him is different. Him up.
Just trip him. Fall to my fucking feet and trip him.
It's called bump and run for a reason.
This wasn't bump and run, dude. He fucking blew him up.
Yeah,
blew him up.
And if he's in there, because otherwise those guys are just going to block you out of the play. If it's right at the line of scrimmage, that's legal.
Well, how though? Because if I'm a receiver on a screen pass, I can't engage in my block. It's within 5 yards, but I can't engage in a block.
You can if you're behind the line of scrimmage on a screen.
No, the guy's block. No. You can't. I've seen it called. Engaged in a block before.
Behind the line of scrimmage. No, because then you wouldn't be able to block as a wide receiver on a blitz. Which obviously you can. If the wide receiver drops back into the formation and hits a pass rusher behind the line of scrimmage, obviously he's allowed to block.
He's allowed to block.
Once you're past the line of scrimmage, you can't block upfield.
Have you not seen a wide receiver screen where they're engaged in the block before the pass is completed and have it called back?
Not past the line of scrimmage.
Yes. You cannot engage in a block until the fucking ball is in the receiver's hands.
Past the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage, and in fact within 1 yard of either side of the line of scrimmage, you can. You can even block in the back within the line of scrimmage if you're an offensive lineman.
Yeah, if you're an offensive lineman. I saw it called against Tennessee. Wide receiver screen engaged in a block before the pass is completed.
Was he behind the line of scrimmage? Because if you're blocking
Or
the
at
field,
it.
yes.
At it. No, but my point being is, how is that illegal, but I can fucking blow up a receiver running a route within 5 yards? I can put my hands on him and try and stop him from getting away from me within the first 5 yards. I've never known you can just blow a guy up running a crossing route across the middle.
Oh, I'd have to see the exact play, but I'm pretty much certain you can engage in a lot of contact here.
You know that I know, but do you know the quick slants they run, where the slot guy just cuts straight across, just behind the defensive line? That's where he got hit. Like, not just pushed. Like, I'm a middle linebacker. I'm going to run and just plow you over.
I think it gets down to initial contact and who initiates it. But I could be wrong, because these rules are so Byzantine, which makes your point.
No, but
right?
It's just like one way or the other. Like,
I know, and it
makes
makes your point entirely, because we have no idea. We're discussing something we've watched, 10,000 times? And we're arguing about the rules interpretations. This is the problem, and that makes your point entirely. Let's clarify these fucking rules. Let's not be so concerned about
and did Tom Brady
a wide receiver being 6 inches off the line and not covering the end. Let's not be concerned about this minutiae.
Yeah, does that really affect a play? How is that an illegal formation?
Yeah, if he's lined 4 yards back, fine. Like, that's ridiculous, you know?
Nobody covering the end.
Let's start to
and
simplify this bullshit. And that's where you're talking about the unnecessary penalties that happen in the regular season that drive everyone nuts.
But when you see a guy, when they're lined up, and you see the wide receivers, move back. What? Why do I have to worry about that? Why can't I line 3 guys up at the same level? Why does it have to be staggered?
No, these are questions. But all right, we're now at an hour here. So
yeah, one question, because we hardly talked about New England, Pittsburgh. Was that a fumble on Brady?
Absolutely.
Was there clear recovery?
No, but if it's called live on the field and he comes out of the pile with the ball, it's Pittsburgh's ball.
But not. We saw that happen in Cleveland. It didn't work that way. But the NFL comes out and says today, which even makes it even more ridiculous, just because somebody comes out of the pile with the ball doesn't mean he recovered the fumble. Since when? I've been watching football for 40 years. When?
Especially because, like, I've seen that happen before, too. But you see the first guy come up with the ball, then a guy come in, knock it out of his hands, grab it, and then hold it aloft, you know?
Yeah.
But
so when? When is that not true?
It's... Fuck. The only other thing I want to say was, and this speaks to how lifeless Pittsburgh came, and I don't know if it was the flu, I don't know why. But at any single point, once that game started, did you think Pittsburgh was going to win?
No.
Not for one fucking nanosecond. That looked like a meaningless Week 14 contest. New England didn't even look to try too hard.
Well,
except for that blunt run.
Pittsburgh's only hope was to get pressure on Brady. And after their first 2 drives, when they're getting really nowhere close to him consistently, it was over.
Yeah, like I'm just saying, at no point in that contest did I think Pittsburgh had a chance to win. 0.
And here's one thing that makes these games, the Super Bowl, why it's so hard for me to pick a side or even come close, is New England has a very good offensive line. Brady doesn't get much pressure on them. New England has no pass rush. It could be the first 120-point Super Bowl. I'll tell you one thing we're betting on the props is under the sack total.
Let's see where it is. If it's 1.5, I'll fight you, but that's the only time. Okay, so we should say what we're going to do next week. We're going to have 2 shows. We're going to pick the game in the first show. And we're going to put a certain amount of money, sides, whatever we decide to do. And then we're going to do my favorite show of the year, which
Prop
is
bets.
Super Bowl prop bets.
Yeah. That's the okay. It's my
Actually,
favorite.
the future show is probably my favorite 2 shows of the year.
That's what I was gonna say. That was my. It's 1A, 1A. Because the future thing, we get the juices flowing for the season.
It's so long.
And then this one's the end.
Between. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm
This
just
one's
so
the end.
excited when we come to our future shows.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I remember you phoning me. Futures are out. When are we doing the podcast? And you know what? Every year, for the last couple of years, when we were doing 2 podcasts a week, by the time we got here, I was exhausted. When we switched back to 1, it's changed my whole demeanor for the last half of the season. It's made a huge difference not doing the 2. Because we do this for fun and hope to get some listeners. And if you could, Marlon and I, when we started the podcast, our only goal, if we could make enough money to go out for a beer together. Guess what? That hasn't happened yet. So if you could, on our website, on my blog posts, there's ad impressions. Click on them. We get pennies on the click. Not even pennies. It's like micro finances for the amount of clicks that we get on some of the ad impressions.
Nano pennies.
Could you please? You don't have to look at the ad, just click on the fucking thing and then close the window that opens up. I don't care. They don't pay out till we get to $100. Just get us to $100 so we can go out for a steak and a beer. Because we don't take any money out of the gambling fund. We could have. That would have said, okay, we made some money off the podcast betting. Let's go out. No. That's for gambling.
Yeah. And that's
click
why
on some
we
ads.
started talking about this was the sober second thought of each other in our gambling, which
Yes.
we now generally make a profit, guys. And if you follow us, you make a profit too.
So, and the other thing we want to say is, and Marlon brought this up to me last week, and I agree. You hear on a lot of the other podcasts, just go to iTunes. If you like the podcast and you want other people to enjoy it, go to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and hopefully get us a little more exposure. That's all we want. We're not asking for a lot. We don't have a donation button. We don't have fuck all. Click on some ads, go to iTunes, and leave a review. We're not asking for a lot. And we hope we give you some enjoyment from our podcast that will lead you to do this. So if you like our podcast and you want to support us, just do that. It doesn't cost you anything. Thank you. Now, if you want to check out our podcast, you can find it on iTunes, 5-star review please, or Stitcher for your Android device. On our website, offensivelines.ca. Follow us on Twitter at Offensive Lines for any updates to our blog posts or when a new podcast is available. Facebook.com/Offensive Lines. And if you want to send us an email, it's offensivelines@shaw.ca. I'm Boyd.
I'm Marlon, and that was our recap of Championship Weekend.
There's Dean Spanos toilet paper available now, Chargers fans.
San Diego, Dean Spanos. Cocksucker!
Generous fucking gambler.